Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. We got a lot to talk about with this man, the Senate Majority Leader from South Dakota, John Thune. Appreciate him joining us right now. Big night on Capitol Hill with Trump addressing Congress. We'll get to that in a moment. But, Senator, appreciate you making the time. I wanted to start with this. I still can't believe this is real. Every single Democrat senator opposed a bill that would keep men from competing in women's sports. That is every Democrat senator that voted. Can you believe this has become a political issue? And given the fact that 79% of Americans agree men should play men's sports, women should play women, including 67% of Democrats, what in the world are Democrats thinking on this bill?
Right. Well, good question, guys. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me that this has become a political issue where the Democrats are so tethered to their, transgender ideological political base that they're willing to throw common sense out the window. I mean, this is just, to me, almost incomprehensible that we're even having this conversation. It's having biological males as the opponents of young women is both fundamentally unfair and it's potentially dangerous, honestly. And so, Coach Tuberville, Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, led this on the floor. We had a vote on it last night, and you are correct. Every single Democrat, to the person, voted against it. And it's an 80-20 issue, as you point out, with the American people. So I can't explain it. I think there was no lesson learned from the election. I think it's common sense issues like this that the American people expect their leaders to act on, and they just block voted against it. What can you say?
Senator Thune, when they vote against it, though, are they claiming publicly? I'm just wondering because this has just happened, and it's hard to believe that they just did this for a lot of us. But I guess if you've been paying attention to Democrats, insanity is not new to them. But are they saying there's some problem in the text of the bill or some procedural, or are they openly just saying we think dudes should be able to play against ladies and that's the way it should be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really honestly the substance of it. You could say that the bill could be changed this year or that way, but it's really very straightforward. And and there was a day when Democrats would have been quick to defend Title IX, and here we are. But this is again. I mentioned this on the floor yesterday, but I had a business professor in graduate school who used to say some things are just intuitively obvious. And I think this is one of those things that's intuitively obvious to people. And I something I obviously feel strongly about. As a father of two women who played sports, and one of whom is in her high school and college Hall of Fame. I can't imagine a world where you would have guys competing against women and taking away opportunities not only to excel in their field and their sport, but also for college scholarships and things that this has serious downstream consequences. And but the Democrats, on a substance level, on a political level, seem to have made a decision that they would rather defend, again, an ideology that is completely out of step with the American people.
We're talking to Senator John Thune. Explain to us, because I'm curious myself, I don't know, why a majority of senators voting for this, which Republicans have and which marshaled itself last night, is not enough to make this a law. The House passed it. Only two, I believe, Democrats voted for it in the House, by the way. 0 senators in the voted for this on the Democrat side, but you needed to get to 60. Why? Explain that for our audience.
Yeah, I know it's hard. It's an inside baseball thing here. It's unique to the United States Senate, but under our rules in the Senate, and this is kind of the system that the founders handed us, it takes a supermajority to do almost anything consequential. And this is so it's 60 votes in the Senate is required to move legislation, with very few exceptions. And one of the things we're working on right now, and you've probably heard, your listeners have probably heard too, the president talk about budget reconciliation. When you have unified control of the government, in other words, the House, the Senate, and the White House, there are things you can do at 51 votes in the Senate that you otherwise wouldn't be able to do through a procedure that is, again, unique to the Senate. But on most issues, And this is an issue where, again, it's a bill that we put in front of the Senate. And this, honestly, this was just a motion to proceed to the bill. This wasn't even this was just to get on it, just to debate it. They voted against even having a debate about it. And that takes 60 as well. So it's a 60-vote threshold, and I know that's, for most Americans, everybody's like, well, isn't 51 a majority in the Senate? The answer is yes. But the rules of the Senate and the history and the heritage of the Senate is such that it requires a supermajority on most legislation.
So what can you hopefully get done through that reconciliation process as some of the top agenda items? We've seen this slew of executive orders coming out from Trump. A lot of them we've been talking about here in the show. We think they're doing great things. Of course, we all also know that executive orders can be overturned by the next administration if, in fact, it's a Democrat. So legislation matters, and we don't have a supermajority. So, Senator Thune, you're the majority leader. What are some of the top things you're hoping can get through the Senate, the House, and get signed by the president using that reconciliation process?
It's a long list, and we are going to do everything we can and push the limits of what's allowable. There are limitations on how it can be used, but the Democrats expanded the scope of reconciliation. They passed two major, $3 trillion worth of new spending in two reconciliation bills when they had unified control of the government, when they had House, Senate, White House. So they've given us a template for how to do it. Obviously, we have a very different agenda than what they wanted to do, but we're united. We want to enact all of President Trump's priorities as quickly as possible, and that deals with the border, securing the border. It's bolstering our national defense. It's restoring American energy dominance and preventing a $4 trillion tax increase at the end of the year on the American people. So, we believe, and I say Senate Republicans believe, and I think the president does too, and hopefully the House will get there, to make these tax cuts permanent so we don't have to go back and deal with it again down the road. But we're here. The Senate's ready to enact as much of the president's agenda as we can through budget reconciliation, and that entails all the things I just mentioned. And I hope that as we work through this process, we will be as aggressive as we possibly can to use that opportunity at a 51-vote threshold in the Senate as opposed to 60 to get as much of the president's agenda done as possible.
What's the time frame to get that done? We've heard a variety of different aspects out there. I heard early, hey, we hope to get this done by Easter. When do you think these bills, in particular dealing with tax cuts and the budget, will be complete as you look at the calendar?
I think Easter's probably ambitious, I would say, but I think that as we look at the kind of the May time frame, obviously we got a deadline in week after next, March 14th. We've got to deal with all the crap the Democrats left us, all the pile up of spending. They didn't do any spending bills last year, and so we're up against this deadline, and we got to fund the government or the government shuts down. So that's the immediate concern. But then the reconciliation bill starts with a budget resolution. Both the House and the Senate have to pass the same one. And right now we've passed budget resolutions, but they're different. But we'll align those, and then we will both act on it. And then that unlocks reconciliation. But reconciliation is another separate big, piece of legislation. And so it's really kind of a two-step process, and it takes some time. And these are complicated issues. I mean, the president wants some things done in tax policy. We got a lot of senators and House members who want to see things done in tax policy that are different than what's in front of us in terms of just a strict extension of the current bill or the current tax policy. But there are all these things as we move through and these moving parts. And ultimately, I tell people when they ask me, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" Then in the end, it really comes down to the two numbers that matter: 218 and 51. You got to have 218 in the House. You got to have a simple majority there, and even under reconciliation, you still have to have 51 votes in the Senate. So that's the math of it. And as we think through what we can do and can't do, it's a function of trying to figure out how do we get this thing in a shape, whatever this bill looks like, that it can secure the necessary 218 in the House and 51 in the Senate.
We're talking to Senate Majority Leader John Thune. What do you expect tonight? Let's shift gears to Trump's address tonight. What do you expect to hear from the president? What should our listeners expect to hear? And what sort of reception do you expect to see from Democrats? I was reading this morning that they're planning all sorts potentially of outrageous and outlandish disruptions during the midst of this speech, potentially. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think they will. The Democrats are I mean, they're still in the stages of grief, and they're really they're trying to find a message. They're trying to get some traction with something, and so far, all it is whatever he's for, I'm going to be against. I think that Democrats right now are afflicted with a really, really bad case of Trump derangement syndrome, and so my assumption is that when they come tonight, they're going to try and be disruptive. But at the end of the day, I think the American people, that's not what they want to see. I don't think they want to see a bunch of lefty ideologues who can't even bring themselves to vote to keep boys out of girls' sports. Creating a ruckus and disruptive to the President of the United States, who I think will be there to talk about, after 4 years of rising costs, lawlessness at the southern border, weakening of America on the world stage, and be talking about turning the page and getting our country back on track. And I think the president has a great opportunity to present to the American people how things are going to be in his second term and what his priorities are relative to the last 4 years under Biden. And you can just look already at what they've done at the southern border. I mean, the top issue in the last election, and this administration has been returning order in a short amount of time. Think about it. The month of February, there were fewer than 9,000 crossings at the southern border under Trump. That was a typical day under Biden. I mean, this is how dramatically things have changed already as a result of President Trump's leadership. And we want to be good partners for him and do as much as we can to get his agenda across the finish line, which is why we worked really hard to get his cabinet confirmed as quickly as possible. So I expect he got a decisive mandate from the American people in November, and I think he's going to be talking about not only what he's already done, but what he's going to do in the 4 years he has available to him to really change the direction of this country in a way that gets it back on track.
Majority Leader Thune, appreciate you making the time for us on Clay and Buck. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Buck. Talk to you. Bye now.
For those of us in the pro-life community, the single best donation you can make is one to save the life of an unborn child. Preborn is the nonprofit dedicated to that cause. Day in and day out, they have been saving lives, and they've been at this for 20 years. They can proudly say they've saved 300,000 plus lives to date. The team working at Preborn use your donations in welcoming women who are pregnant and making that decision about the life of their unborn child, whether to bring it into this world or to choose abortion. By introducing these women to the growing life inside of them with a free ultrasound from Preborn, they are twice as likely to choose life. And this all starts, like I said, with that free ultrasound, because when that mom-to-be hears the heartbeat, it changes everything. This is only possible because of your donations to this worthy nonprofit, Preborn. So please, would you be the voice for Preborn and become a monthly donor? $28 a month could be the difference between life and death for so many babies. To donate securely, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK.